Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we have a video that I've been wanting to make for a while. So we have Keith and Alan from AK Racing sitting down. They're going to answer a bunch of questions. So I put a post up on Instagram asking for any questions you guys wanted to ask these guys, as well as on the Facebook group, the SST owners. So a lot of these are questions that you guys put and some that I just sort of wrote down that I think are common questions to get asked. So yeah, let's get straight into the questions now and let these guys fill us in on all about the SST platform.
That is an interesting question because, read that back again, the most common causes of SST failure.
Yeah.
So most people would ask, what is the most common SST failure? But you've gone completely different route here. So
yeah,
I like this because the answer otherwise is really boring and everyone already knows, but we won't go into it because that's not answering the question. So the most common cause of SST failure, flogging it cold.
Definitely.
Would
Clutch
definitely
slip.
be a big one. And clutch slip, like if your clutches are slipping, back off. Don't be a moron. Wait till they get to temperature. To give you an idea for temperature, 30 minutes of driving in Queensland, which is a hot place, to get in winter, before your transmission is around the 70 to 80 degrees mark, which is where it's most comfortable being thrashed. So if you are thrashing your car 5 minutes after driving it, because the water temperatures hit the middle, that's not SST temperature, you're going to destroy your clutches. When you destroy your clutches, friction material ends up in the fluid, friction material ends up through the valve body, friction material ends up everywhere. Yeah, that ends up with other things that happen as well. Basically, you'll just end up needing a new clutch at least, and possibly a valve body.
That's with our winters at 10 degrees Celsius as well.
Yeah, so anyone who's southern side of Australia, anyone who's in the US and gets like those really cold temps, yeah, you guys would be nuts to actually be flogging the car without it being at temp. Get yourself an OBD gauge. If you've got an Apple phone, get rid of your Apple phone, get an Android so you can run the Talk Pro app, and you'll know what temperature your car's actually running at. Yeah.
Really comes down to how you drive the car. So if it's just sort of to and from work, driving it pretty easily like a grandma would, then probably around 30,000 Ks would be the service interval. But if you like either of us two and flog it everywhere we go, then that's going to be closer to 15 or 20,000 Ks.
I'm probably closer to 10,000 Ks because to be honest with you, my Ralliart's 300 kilowatts. I've got a template clutch in it, and if I don't drive it like I stole it everywhere, why the hell do I have that car? So 10,000 Ks for me for an SST service, but I beat on it. I really do beat on it, and I drive it hard. And I know a lot of you guys out there in the interwebs do the exact same thing. So just common sense. Grandma driving 30,000 Ks, flogging it 10,000 Ks, anywhere in between, can be anywhere in between. Miles, obviously, do your maths and work it out yourself. That's not my job. Track work. This is a real interesting thing. So our track car, we do time attack. So time attack is basically 2 or 3 hot laps, 6 laps total, 6 sessions in a day, thereabouts. Yep. And we would probably do 3 track days before we consider our fluid to be fully cooked. That's when we'll start to notice clutches slipping, temperature flare-ups. It doesn't regulate temperature properly anymore. The fluid's just gone way too thin. So at that point in time, the fluid is at its end of life. So 3 of those track days, the end of the 3rd track day, the fluid is well and truly gone. If you're doing enduro or if you're doing Motocana and stuff like that, you're gonna have to do it more regularly because those events are a lot harder on the fluid, a lot more peaks in temperature, and yeah, so it definitely reduces your life of your fluid significantly.
I'll still service it every couple of years because the fluid still oxidizes over that time. So yeah, probably around every 2 years.
Whoa, this is a tricky one because everyone's going to tell you, you're going to have people telling you 220 kilowatts, you're going to have people telling you they get 500 horsepower. The guys with 500 horsepower, the dyno's lying to you, the tuner's lying to you. everyone's lying to you. Like, the world is a lie. So pull your head out of your ass and get back into it, because yeah, it's not right. The reality is 250 kilowatt, 350 newton meters around there is really comfortable for an OEM clutch pack. You can take it out, you can drive the car hard, so long as the temperature's good, so long as you're in super sport, and it's gonna last and it's gonna be fine. The guys pushing 300 kilowatts out of their OEM clutch, not a big drama, but again, you need to just be mindful, I suppose. Like, make sure the temperature's good, make sure you're in super sports. If you start flogging it in normal mode with 300 kilowatts and 450 newton meters, you are gonna have a bad time. You're gonna slip, and if you are high horsepower and you do have an OEM clutch and you start to notice the clutch slipping, back off. Just lift off, and you know, maybe your temperature's not right, maybe you're not in super sports, just pay attention to it. And the SST pressures, they're dependent on throttle position as well?
Yeah, they are, and yeah, and you also your MAF sensor readings as well. So basically, if you're around that 300 kilowatts, your clutch is going to come down to how you drive it, and basically, yeah, how much torque it's going to run and how easy you are on that clutch. If you're a lot of on-off throttle, and the clutch can slip then, so it's just going to reduce that life of that OEM clutch pretty quickly.
Yep, and again, that throttle position, like I was talking about before, if you give the clutch like 40% throttle, or sorry, if you give the accelerator 40% throttle, you're going to notice that it's going to flare and go all over the place. If you put the foot hard down, it's not going to flare, because the car's going to be building boost and going to be clamping better. So, you know, be mindful of how you drive the car, learn how your car works, and just remember, this isn't an everyday car, it's not a standard auto, it's not a Corolla, it's a performance car, drive it like that.
Yeah, like we said just earlier, about in the Queensland winter, it still takes about the 30 minutes to heat up to operating temperature, so definitely recommend the heated sump. The Dodson ones run through the cooling, your heating system, cooling system with the radiator, so it gets the fluid, the SST fluid up to operating temperature. And
around that 80, so basically your Dodson sump regulates your temperature. It's not really a heater, it's not really a cooler, it sort of does both. So it helps regulate, it helps get your temperature to around that 80-90 degrees mark, tries to get your temperature to where your coolant level is, which is ideal. So that means for track work, when your fluid's getting hot up around that 110, 115, the Dodson sump is trying to bring your fluid back down to that 80. When you're driving and then you start the car dead cold, your water temperature gauge on the dash, that gets to halfway in 4 minutes, 3 minutes. That's about 70, 80 degrees. That is then putting 70 to 80 degrees into that heated sump, which is bringing your SST temp up really fast.
And that'll do that in about 6 to 7 minutes in the Queensland winters, so it reduces that 30 minutes down significantly. So yeah, you can start beating on the car a lot sooner. One
other thing I do want to note here is SST vehicles, as they are from factory, the fluid will not warm up while you sit at idle. So if you start the car and leave it in your driveway and walk away and come back in half an hour, your SST will be at 21, 22 degrees. It'll be cold because it doesn't heat. It doesn't heat unless you move. There is no factory heater for the SST, so it will never actually get warm parked in the driveway. It will only get warm when you actually drive the car. Once you get a Dodson sump though, it will get warm sitting parked, because the coolant flow runs through there, it's heating up the front sump, and it's actually bringing that temperature up really fast. So again, you can start the car, if you've got smart key, it's amazing. Most people don't realize, take the manual key out, put in the door, lock it, walk away. Car's running, car's secured and locked, go back inside, make your coffee, come back out. By the time you're ready to leave for work, it's been 6-7 minutes, your SST's at temp, your oil's just about at temp, your water's at temp, jump in it and send it.
Yeah. And then with the SST coolers, it really comes down to what you're using the car for. So normal street driving, you shouldn't really need the cooler, but if you're doing anything like a racing event that you're on the track for more than 30 minutes at a time, then that's definitely recommending a SST cooler, because it'll be well over 130 degrees quite easily.
One thing to note is the best way, if you're setting your car up as like a dedicated track weapon, or you're going to be going to the track very, very regularly, what we actually have found best with our clients, and we have a ton of people that do a lot of track work, is Dodson heated sump and an aftermarket SST cooler as well. So we run both in conjunction with each other. The cooler we can either have switched, the cooler we can also have set up so that when the SST hits a certain temp, turns on automatically, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, we can set all that stuff up, and basically it regulates your temperature. So when you've been parked in the pits for 40 minutes or an hour during a break session and you start the car again, your fluid's back in 50, 60 degrees. It's way too cold to get out and send it straight away. So you need that heater to get your temp up after a few minutes of idle, and then you need that cooler to keep your temp back down. And again, the cooler with the Dodson sump, they're all working to get your temp back to that 90, which is a real sweet spot for sending it. Okie doke, easy question, I'll answer this one. 8-plate, OEM clutches are an 8-plate. So with an 8-plate, you have 8 frictions and you have 10 steels. They're 2 stacks of 4 plus 5, basically. With that, really comfortable as a daily driver, more than enough clamping pressure when you're in super sports. So if you're running, we just spoke about that before, if you're running that 250 kilowatt, you're a street car, you're loving it, OEM clutch, 8-plate, perfect. No problems at all. I love 8-plate clutches, they're amazing. 10-plate. 10-plate is like the sweet spot of upgraded clutches, because when you go to a 10-plate, you don't really shorten the lifespan or change the lifespan of the clutch by much. You get extra clamping force, you can hold more power, they shift so much more aggressively if you have a good tuner. If you have a 10-plate that's not shifting aggressively, get a new tuner. 10-plate, 350 kilowatts, 450 newton meters as like a comfortable maximum. Yeah,
there's a few different templates depending on which friction style you go to and what clamp plates you use. So, but they're all going to be around that sort of power goals pretty easily.
Yep. Now, next step. I know your question was only for 8s and 10s, Jackson, but I'm going to elaborate here because we've now got to talk about 12s, 13s, and 14s. As we get more and more plates, we get more and more clamping force. So there's more pressure, which is less clutch slip. That means the more power you have, the more plates you need in your clutch to be able to hold more power. However, we have a fixed area inside of the clutch basket to build this clutch stack. So we can't just chuck in, you can't chuck in 12 OEM thickness steels and frictions, because that won't fit. So everything becomes thinner. And as it becomes thinner, there's physically less material. So if we go to a 12 plate, again, all your frictions are thinner, all your steels are thinner. We go to a 13, everything's thinner. We go to a 14, everything's thinner. The more plates, the less lifespan you will have out of your clutch. So don't expect to put a 14 plate clutch in and get 50,000 Ks out of it. Probably don't even expect 20,000 or 10,000 Ks out of it, really. Those clutches, there's very, very little friction material on there, and
it's more the steels are super thin as well. So with too much heat, they'll just warp, which is the biggest thing with the big plate clutches. They're designed for drags, which are great. It'll hold because there's more surface area of the frictions. It'll hold the power, but it's not going to last very long.
And you're driving 400 meters at a time, so they're not designed to last. Yeah, he's got a basket here. He's going to open up and
so. Yeah, I'm not going to open this one up. So that's the basket that all the clutches have to fit into. So regardless if it's a 8-plate, a 16-plate, it all has to fit in this same housing.
Just a little bit. Okay. They move, and there are 4. Is that sufficient, or do you think they want more info than that?
Probably a little bit more. So yeah, there are four magnets, and it's usually, everyone keeps saying shift forks that fail. It's not so much the forks themselves that fail, it's the magnet coming off the arm on the fork. But we do see some forks physically bend. So the fork failures can happen, but the majority of them is just the magnets coming loose.
Give you an idea, I'll just step a little bit closer to the camera here. So this is what your shift fork itself looks like, or some of them. And this is the magnet here that actually comes loose. So it's a sealant that holds this in place, that allows this to wobble. When this part here starts to wobble, the sensor that comes off the mechatronics reads the position of this fork as it moves from the magnet. When that magnet's loose, it can't read it. It just goes, doesn't exist anymore, sorry. And it turns off. So that's how you lose your gears. It's that little plastic piece breaking, it's not the actual fork itself breaking. Cool. Yes.
Yeah, the gear sets themselves are extremely strong. We don't see many of those fail, but the shift fork forward magnet is almost guaranteed to come off over time. We do have a couple of cars like with 400,000 Ks that still on original gearboxes, but
first owner cars,
yeah,
so we know they're telling us the truth. They're original gearboxes, they haven't had clutches, they haven't had this, but those guys are granny driving the car everywhere. They drive it like a daily, they look after it, they service it properly, and that's why they're lasting. But if you're going to drive it like a performance car, I mean, performance cars break. That's the game. That is the game we play. So yeah, part failure will happen. On top of shift fork 4, the other part failures are obviously mechatronics, clutch damper, and then we go into, say, like an oil pump here, and then we go to the shift fork itself can fracture and bend. That usually happens in really high horsepower with like heavy duty 12, 13, 14 plate clutches. Doesn't happen on a daily with an 8 plate clutch. Very rare. I don't think we've ever seen it like that. And then you get bearing failures, you get synchro failures, but gear sets themselves are very strong. The gearbox itself is very strong. It's literally just the little wear and tear parts that will fail over time, as you would expect them to do, as would happen with any gearbox.
Yeah, so to prolong its life is going to be, with the clutches, it's definitely getting up to operating temp first. And then in terms of everything else, is just regular servicing. So you don't want your valve body gumming up or your mechatronics failing. So regular services with fresh fluid, fresh filter will prolong its life.
Yep, and old fluid, it doesn't lubricate properly, it doesn't regulate heat properly, it's just really bad for the gearbox. So you really want your fluid done more regularly than not. It's cheap insurance.
Yep.
Definitely not normal, not necessarily something to worry about, but it is a concern because it's not normal. The most likely scenario in this particular case is that your clutch steels have warped, and they warp because over time there's just been a lot of excessive heat. Maybe someone flogged the car in normal mode prior to you, maybe you did it yourself because you're a bit of a moron. Maybe your clutch damper's failed and it can't hold enough pressure, which has caused the clutches to slip, which has caused the steels to warp. But basically, yeah, the gearbox is trying to clamp, the steels is going nut, and you get shudder. That's it.
On stock turbos, very little strain at all. The clutches can handle, as we were saying before, the factory 8 plate or 250 kilowatts all day, every day. As long as you're driving it in super sport mode and temperature up with the correct operating temp. But yeah, so if you're flogging it cold, then nothing's going to last. But as you go over the 250 kilowatts, you need your clutch to suit the power output that you're making, and everything will be good. But there's obviously going to be a point where you have more power than the clutch can handle, and that's, you know, the trade-off of what you want, your clutch disintegrating or, you know, something else letting go instead.
Fast car life, things are going to break.
Yeah,
the faster you go, the more expensive it is to fix. That's just life. But again, stock turbo, what's a stock X turbo on E85? Like mid 200s anyway, 250s, yeah. So effectively, if you've got a 10 turbo on E85 and we max it out to a comfortable 250 kilowatts, your SST's happy. You haven't got to do anything.
Yep.
Can I answer this one?
Sure.
I've got like the perfect textbook answer for this.
Okay.
So if your SST is making like a rattle noise at idle, it's fine. If your SST is making like a whining noise driving along in super sport, it's fine. If your SST does like this little clunk, clunk, clunk when you start the car and it's cold, that's fine. If your SST is running completely fine, it doesn't have any weird noises, it's not doing anything, it doesn't have some funky shifts, panic, because something is going to go. Something is going to go, it's going to be big, it's going to cost a lot of money, because those things are supposed to be noisy and clunky. They're not supposed to be drama-free. If you have a drama-free SST, just get rid of it. Get it out of your life as soon as possible, because they're not a drama-free gearbox.
Pretty much it.
Okay, so you haven't got to do everything at once. That's probably the biggest thing here. The main thing we recommend doing every single time the gearbox is out of the car, or well, the first time the gearbox comes out of the car, is the shift fork 4 repair, because it's the most common part that is likely to fail. So if it hasn't failed yet, it's going to fail soon. That's pretty well a given with these gearboxes. Now, when we do a shift fork 4 though here, so some workshops will quote you and it seems really cheap, and it is, because they pull the gearbox out, they replace shift fork 4, they bolt everything back together, they put it back in the car. Our shift fork 4 repair includes a lot of extras that other workshops don't even know they have to do. So, pardon me, we will replace the ball plug on the mechatronics, which we actually have those made locally here in Brisbane. We've got a guy that can CNC them down. It's our own design. It's significantly stronger than the factory one.
It's billet stainless compared to an alloy that the factory ones are. The factory ones literally crack in half, and they need to be replaced. Otherwise, you don't get good clutch pressure and your clutches will destroy themselves fairly quickly.
Yep. Internal seal kit, so we replace all the internal seals that we have to access to dismantle the gearbox. We actually replace all those seals before it goes back together. We don't reuse anything. The cost of a seal kit versus the cost of having to pull it all back out when something isn't right, it's just stupidity at the end of the day. Internal filter, so simple to do on the bench. That gets done every single time a gearbox is on the bench. Internal filter, no negotiation there. External filter obviously is done. Shift fork 2 upgrade we do now with every shift fork 4 repair, because shift fork 2 is so common now, it's becoming the next shift fork 4. But these cars are like 13 years old now, so that's to be expected.
That's it.
There's also a ton of custom work that we do in the gearboxes here at AK Racing that I won't talk to you about, because it's stuff that we've developed over the last 9 years with our own R&D. And it's stuff where we've learnt, hey, this causes this particular failure, this causes this thing to fail sooner. So we've worked
it's more
out
preventative
100%,
work that we do on the box.
It's preventative stuff we do, and not every workshop does it, and it's not available openly online, and for that reason I'm keeping it up here. Well, it's actually just not here, it's in there. I know some of it, but he knows it all. Don't kidnap me for the information. But yeah, good workshops. Your Cosmics will probably do it. I guess RP probably does it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of gearbox shops out there that'll tell you they know SSTs, they know shit. I answer this question about 17 times a day on the phone. So for my sanity's sake, I'm going to pass this one to Alan.
Not on stock ECU and stock transmission. There had been work previously started, but it never got finished. So the short answer is no on factory ECU. But ECUs like Cyvex, we can mimic those, like normal mode with the S-Sport clutch pressures. Motec, we've only just got ours. We haven't had a chance to install it yet, so I don't know exactly what features we're going to have with the Motec that supports the SST, but Cyvex definitely does at the moment. But the other good thing is the speed circuit controller that you can hardwire in. That'll automatically switch to S-Sport mode as soon as the car starts. So that's a pretty handy gadget. We'll have those in the next couple of weeks in stock. So yeah, if you're too lazy to manually change it, get one of those speed circuit ones.
Should we do a discount code that Jackson can put in the comments of his video? So just people who watch his video can like save
Torsten will
money.
do that.
Yeah, Torsten. So Torsten, when you're watching this video, add a discount code down the bottom. Should we make the discount code now so he has to do it from the video? Because we're going to forget later. Let's just call it Jackson Strain S Sport. That's it. So write it down. Jackson Strain S Sport. That will be a discount code, and that'll save you a couple of bucks, enough to buy a Zinger burger or something like that off Auto Super Sport thing. Enjoy.
All right, so that's all the questions that we had noted down to ask. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful. Definitely hit up AK Racing's website. There's every part you'd ever need for the Evo 10 and Ralliart platform, as well as now, if you watch the very end, you will have found out we have a discount code on the automatic Super Sport module. So make sure you have to see that part of the video to find out what the code is if you're looking to buy one of those. Yeah, so massive thanks to Alan and Keith for helping us out with this video. Really appreciate their time.
Happy to be here.
But yeah, that's going to be it for today. So until next time, I'll catch you guys later.